The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
The Packers and the Bears entered the playoffs on losing streaks.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into today's Locked On Packers and Locked On Bears crossover podcast. My name is Lauren Cox, host of Locked On Bears, alongside Peter Bukowski from Locked On Packers. And I want to thank you for making either Locked On Bears or Locked On Packers your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. On the show today, we're breaking down this matchup for the third time in barely a month. These two teams know each other pretty well. I'm not expecting a lot of surprises, but yet both teams have some injury question marks. The guy's coming off of injury, and both teams have been playing pretty well. So all of a sudden, we still have a lot to learn. Maybe both teams have a lot to learn about themselves more than each other, including for the Packers, like who their head coach is going to be in the long term. Peter, I want to start there. Not that LaFleur is actually going to go anywhere, but like, is that a real distraction for the team? Because it's sort of floating around nationally of like, well, is he going to get an extension? Is he not? Is he just kind of floating out there? Could he leave? Could he not? Is that a real distraction at all? Or is it just, pushing it off to the future?
This is the dumbest storyline. I hate it. I'm not saying the question is dumb, because I don't think it is. I just think as a distraction for this team, if they're distracted by it, he should be fired. Like, that's the reality. And I don't think he should be fired. But I mean, like, if they're letting it seep into the locker room, that's ridiculous. This is a playoff game against your division rival, a team that you blew a game that you had won cold if Romeo Doubs just catches the ball on an onside kick. And it still took 16 more things after that for the Packers to lose that game. That would be absurd. And I think that would be the kind of thing that makes you reconsider what your locker room is made of, what your coach is. I don't think it's happening right now is really the thing. And this is why podcasts exist. This is why we have space to talk. I just can't imagine it's affecting that locker room in any way. And I think part of that is that locker room knows how good they are. That team knows how good they are. And they remember what this looked like in Denver in the second half. They're up 9 against the Broncos. They are rolling. And Jordan Love rears back to throw a deep ball to Christian Watson. And I'm telling you, Lauren, speaking for Packer fans everywhere, when Jordan Love let that ball go, every Packer fan watching went, we're going to the Super Bowl. Every single one. Because they're coming off, I'm serious, because they're coming off the Lions, the impressive Lions performance. Beat down is probably overstating it, but they dominated that Lions team that night. Like, that was a 10-point game late. They kicked a field goal to make it a one-possession game. The Packers controlled that game from start to finish. The Bears game the next week, an emotional win, right? And then you're going to Denver, the number one seed in the AFC. And they were controlling that game too. And they're up 2 scores, and they're taking a deep shot. Like, this was the whole problem with Matt LaFleur, was he was too conservative. He played not to lose against the Eagles, played not to lose against the Panthers, played not to lose against the Browns. That was not what he was doing. And, things sort of fell apart from there. Christian Watson got hurt. Zach Tom had just been hurt. Micah Parsons gets hurt in the second half. Evan Williams gets hurt in the second half. And all of that is true. And so they know how good this team is in that locker room. They still believe that they believe they can beat this Bears team. They believe they can go to Seattle in the divisional round and beat that team. Like, this team still has that belief, which is why I don't think the Bears, the coaching thing is something that is really on top of their mind. I want to ask you about this, because I saw some Bears content creators talking about, and I think some Bears players talking about the first game against the Packers. They kind of hyped themselves up a little too much, and they came out and really did not play well in the first half of that first game at all. And it was still a close game at halftime, because the Packers had some unforced errors and other things that allowed them to stay in that game. And then they kind of did the same thing in the second game too. They didn't really make that adjustment. So what are you expecting from the guys? What are you expecting from Ben Johnson? Because Ben Johnson, like, there's no off switch for him. Like, it's going to be an intense week. He's going to be as fired up as ever. And so it's going to be up to these players to find in a playoff game, like, how do you stay even keeled for a group that outside of a couple players have just never been in this position before?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a trial by fire there where they just like, you got to just kind of learn and do it on the fly, like rather than try and tone things down too much, because I think they tried to tone things down a little bit against the Lions in week 18. And Ben Johnson said, we went with a more simple game plan, a little less motion, because we know the Lions are so multiple on defense, and they still started really slow in that game. Like, they haven't been able to kind of fine tune exactly where they need to be at the very beginning of games. And I think there's a feeling of like, well, maybe this will be the week they figure out where they need to be at the beginning of games. But also there's a feeling like, well, even if they're not where they need to be at the start, they will be by the fourth quarter, and they're always going to be in it, even if they're down a couple scores entering that period. So
yeah, they're so annoying.
yeah, it's like, so it's hard to panic about the slow starts, but also it's becoming a frustration of like, why? It's always something different, right? It's a false start here. It's a drop pass there. It's a blitz that they don't pick up properly here. It's a run stuff on third down there. Like, it's not one player failing consistently at the beginning of the games. It's something differently going wrong that eventually they get there.
It's just like a Caleb miss on first down on a slant. It's like, okay, guys there, like you just missed it. And all of a sudden now you're in 2nd and 10 and you got to figure out where to go from there.
But that's the thing though. Like, that was the case early in the season in their slow starts, but like the last 2 losses to the 49ers and Lions, he's been pretty dialed in. He had like one bad throw in the first quarter against Detroit, and that was his only true miss early on. Third quarter and later in the game, he missed some throws for sure, but he hasn't been inaccurate at the beginning of games, even when the offense is slow. And that's the frustrating part. It's like, he's doing his job, and now they're quote unquote failing him at some times early on. Like, everything still has to come together nicely.
And that's not where you want to be in the playoffs. Neither of these teams playing their best football coming into this game, which is what makes it so fascinating, because I went back and I remembered the Packers playing better earlier in the first game than they actually did. Like, I felt like in the first half, that could have been a 14-21, 3 kind of score. And it wasn't, right? Like, that game could have been more out of hand than it got. And I think in both games, you look at the Packers and you're looking at missed opportunities. I mean, they go 0-5 in the red zone. They have the fumble in the red zone. And I know Malik Willis was a part of that, but like, Josh Jacobs is your core player. Like, that he is your star running back, and he fumbles. Now, he was hurt. And I think that was part of it too, is you basically didn't see Josh Jacobs in the second game after that fumble. And it wasn't a, sit down, young man kind of fumble, like benching. It was no, you obviously are hurting the team by trying to play hurt. And he's off the injury report this week. I think that's a huge one for the Packers, because go back to the fourth quarter of the first game. It's that toss run where he like splits the defense like he's Dwayne Wade on a pick and roll in like 2012 for the Miami Heat. Like, it was that kind of thing where like 5 different Bears had a shot at him, and he just like slips through all of them and picks up a 20-yard gain. That was a huge play in the game. And getting, like, for example, that version of Josh Jacobs, to your point about fast starts, if you get a better version of Josh Jacobs and they can play a little bit more balanced offense, I think that would really help the Packers. I mean, first drive, second game, they drove right down the field, and they blow it on 4th and goal. It's like, if they score on that drive, who knows what's different about the rest of that game. So I think the fast start, I kind of think it's going to be another slow start for both of these teams. But if one of them can get off to a fast start, I think that just it's going to create such an advantage, because it's going to amplify the anxiety that both teams are already feeling. I said earlier in the week, Lauren, that the fact that the Packers drew the Bears amplifies the pressure on the team. Like, if this is the Eagles, I don't think they have the same pressure to go into Philly and win.
Totally.
Because this is the Bears, because they are favored to win, according to our friends at FanDuel. I think that amplifies the pressure on the Packers. And I think it was Greg Braggs who pointed out, like, this is going to be an electric crowd in Chicago, but if the Packers go up 7-0, it could get really quiet in that stadium. And that's something, if you're the Packers, like, I just think that's a bigger advantage for Green Bay in a situation like this than it is the other side for Chicago. And just because of the experience of these two teams, like, the Packers have been in these moments. It's a young team, but they've still been in these moments. The Bears haven't. And so I think it's going to be, that first quarter is going to be, there are going to be a lot of tight sphincters in Chicago. The wild card round is here and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Before every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback, play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
Two of the NFC's most consistent teams in the 2020s collide for yet another playoff battle. Eagles, 49ers. It's crossover Thursday. Eagles 49ers Croc this Sunday, 4:30, a wild card battle between, like I said, two teams that in the 2020s have been two of the most consistent teams in this conference. I mean, the amount of conference championships they've both made, Super Bowls as well. It's going to be another fun battle. And I think the theme, if you would agree, for both of these teams this year has been finding a way. Even if things aren't perfect on one side of the ball, like the Eagles on offense, for the 49ers, it's all the injuries. I think that's part of why these two teams have been so consistent in the 2020s is each and every year they've been able to adapt to what that season requires. And I don't think this year has been any different.
Yeah, the 49ers, I mean, just the plethora of injuries that they've had this year to have to try to overcome has been unprecedented. You know, when you look at the amount of money that's just sitting out, it probably not even probably, it has to be the most.
I've never seen anything like it. Yeah.
Yeah, missing guys like, Nick Bosa. And for a large part of the season as well, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, your quarterback was out. Your starting quarterback was out for a large percentage of the time. You're missing receivers, right? First round pick. So Ricky Pearsall, he's missed several games.
Yeah.
Michael Williams, rookie, getting his feet wet, still learning how to pass rush, but he was very helpful in the run game. Gone, done for the season, torn ACL. Right. And there's been several other injuries that the 49ers have had to deal with. So just the amount of money that they've had sit out this year has been unprecedented. But Kyle Shanahan has done a terrific job of a couple of things. One, taking advantage of a schedule and not the divisional schedule, because the division was very difficult, and I think that ups kind of 49ers' strength of schedule overall. Sure. But the non-divisional games weren't the most difficult. So I think because of that, the 49ers were able to not just stay afloat, but have an opportunity to be the number one overall seed. And with the challenges they had to deal with the injuries, it was extremely impressive. I think we all expected the 49ers, because of the schedule, during the preseason, when you look at it, they're going to have a good season. But when you have the injuries mount up the way they did, George Kittle was out for a while. You start to have all these injuries. There's no way, like, this team is done. So for them to still win 12 games was very impressive. So you just talked about the consistency of these two teams. That was some of the things that, Philadelphia has had to deal with as well.
Of course. And you look back, the thing it reminds me the most of to compare what the 49ers are dealing with this year to the Eagles is 2018 and 2019, the years after they won that first Super Bowl, they had to deal with so many injuries on both sides of the ball. I remember in 2019, Carson Wentz is throwing to a bunch of practice squad receivers to get in. So these two teams have both been able to overcome that kind of adversity in this past decade of NFL football where they've been so consistent. And yeah, you're right. The schedule has been pretty fair to the 49ers. It's part of why I picked them to be in the playoffs in the preseason. But the injuries do kind of even it out where it makes it all the more impressive. And this year's just a perfect representation of what Kyle Shanahan has meant to San Francisco, where it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It doesn't matter the situation of, no Brandon Ayuk either this year. Whatever happens on defense, they've always been consistent with him as head coach. It's part of why I don't know if he's going to win Coach of the Year, Croc, but I think he should absolutely be a finalist for what he's done. And the NFC is such a competitive conference too, so I think it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think, up until last week, he might have been the favorite or at least close to the favorite. I think with the loss there, you have to go with maybe Vrabel, maybe Ben Johnson. Just kind of what he's done with Chicago. And I'm forgetting a team off the top of my head, but there are some other teams. Jacksonville Jaguars head coach Cohen. There's some guys that have done some very impressive things with their team. But yeah, no, Kyle, I think this has been, in my opinion, his most masterful coaching job. Losing your starting quarterback for 8 games, most people will be just down and out, season's done. But, I heard defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles in his comments he made 49ers quarterback. 49er fans were not happy about that at all.
Fangio's brutally honest, Croc. That's what he does.
And I like Fangio,
he's the best
49er defensive coordinator during some of the glory years with Jim Harbaugh. But I don't think he was all that wrong. Now, again, let me rephrase this before my 49er fan base attacks me. He said he didn't see much difference between Mac Jones and Brock Purdy. And I believe what he's speaking to is we essentially defend them the same. Now, 49er fans will say, well, Brock Purdy is way more agile and he's more athletic. How could you say this? But that's not the 49ers game plan with them. The game plan with the 2 quarterbacks doesn't quite change. Now, maybe some of the ways they see the field, right? Maybe Mac Jones throwing underneath a little bit more, right? Or Brock Purdy's ability to extend plays with his legs, but it's not like you're going from, Mac Jones to Lamar Jackson. So, the 49ers don't use Brock Purdy's legs as a part of the run game.
Right.
So in the sense of the concepts and passing game, from Fangio's standpoint, it's like, well, it's essentially the same offense. We're preparing for the same things.
Yeah, it's not like Jalen Hurts, Croc, right? With designed runs, you're not using as much RPO and read option and those kind of things. So,
we do believe Brock Purdy better than Mac Jones, but
of course,
in his eyes, it's like, well, yeah, Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, Jimmy Garoppolo. It's Kyle's game plan,
Shanahan.
And we're defending that.
Absolutely. And I think that's going to be the key in this game is Fangio's defense, which has carried the way for the Eagles all season long. They've been a top 3, top 5 defense for the entire season. That's why they've been able to overcome. It's frustrating because this offense has the highest payroll in the entire NFL. There's stars or at least should be stars at every single position, but they've been one of the worst teams this year on third down. They've been one of the slowest teams to get out of the huddle, to get the snap off. They've been one of the worst teams on first and second down. So I think that's like the huge storyline for the Eagles in this game is, does the defense have to carry them again for the majority of this game? Can the offense make sure they don't drag down a championship-ready defense and be a unit that maybe they're not winning because of? I think the defense will carry them, but it's at least a unit that you can win with. And there's been so many times this year. You look at their last win where the starters played against the Buffalo Bills a couple weeks ago, 2 straight quarters, the third and fourth quarter, they only had 1 first down and 17 total yards. So that's going to be the theme of this game for the Eagles is now that there's no turning back, there is no next week to figure this out. Can an offense that has so many veterans on top 5, top 10 contracts that have been in these playoff games before, that have competed for and won championships, can they figure this thing out, or will we have our answer that, hey, this isn't going to get solved until the offseason. They need a new play caller. It's not going to be Kevin Patullo. This offensive line needs to get healthy. To me, Croc, that's like the big thing I'm watching for the Eagles. And I think the Niners are a great test for that. Even with all the injuries, this is a team that fights hard and plays really physical.
Well, I think for some of these teams that have been struggling a little bit to get things going offensively, the 49ers defense might be just the
That's why there's no excuses.
The recipe that they're looking for. Again, just 49ers just decimated by injuries. So there's a lot of inconsistencies on the defensive side of the ball. They look to kind of maybe have the offense be able to carry the load. Now, again, we expected that heading into the season, and there's a lot of young guys on this defense, a lot of guys that you're going to have to count on. I mean, how many new starters that are in their first or second years that were like mid to late round draft picks that you have to count on to help you get to where you were before, right? Like a top 5 defense consistently in the NFL, but they're not quite that. You're seeing a lot of the young growing pains. You were not expecting Bosa, Fred Warner, and your rookie Michael Williams to be out. So that hinders things a little bit as well. And I think teams have essentially been able to take advantage of that a little bit, or at least keep them in rhythm. Last week, 49ers gave up 13 points to Seattle, and it felt like just watching, like, man, the 49ers couldn't stop the run. Like Sam Darnold was efficient, and I'm still kind of weirded out by how that only resulted in 13 points. But a lot of the other teams have just been able to kind of move the ball at will, essentially. And it's been the 49ers offense that has been able to carry the load. Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and all those guys, where it's like, all right, well, we're going to have to outscore teams. So for a team like Philadelphia, who offense hasn't quite been clicking or been consistent. 49ers defense may be something that allows them to get there. And then from that standpoint, we may be looking at a shootout.
The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Before every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback, player coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
It's wild card weekend, and the primetime matchup on Sunday has the 2-seed Patriots hosting the 7-seed Chargers.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Okay, it's time, David. It is time. David Drogemeyer, what's the biggest story in LA as we prepare for this one on Sunday night?
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty easy to figure out what the biggest story is for the Chargers. It has everything to do with Justin Herbert and can he exercise his playoff demons. Justin's currently 0-2 in the playoffs with obviously the last year, and his last time he was in was a 4-interception performance, and then the other one was his team giving up a 27-0 lead, and obviously leading to another big-time loss. And until he wins one, it's going to continue to be the biggest story for him. Even though the Chargers are going to be missing their Pro Bowl tackles, the pressure is on him, and it will be until that changes. So you also wonder, if he's going to be able to get that win and be able to go on a deep playoff run with the obvious issues on the offensive line. And it doesn't matter because, with quarterbacks, they get paid the most. They have the most responsibility. Therefore, whether they win or lose is put on them, fair or not.
Yeah, it's so true, and that's the pressure of being a quarterback, right, in the NFL. And it's pretty amazing watching outside looking in. Now, I used to do some national radio back in the day, so I've watched a decent amount of Herbert throughout his career. And Justin Herbert's such a talented guy, talented quarterback, just tremendous. But he has had some issues. And, I was shocked watching the last one against Houston. That was absolutely brutal. I just, kind of hard to explain how a guy so talented could have such kind of a meltdown in a playoff game. So I totally get that. And it kind of goes hand in hand with what the biggest story is for the Patriots when you look at this game coming up on Sunday night. And to me, David, is, how do the first timers perform? You got a quarterback in Justin Herbert, 2 playoff games. He hasn't played great. This will be Drake May's first playoff game. What does that do to the guy? And I know he's been talking to the media and he's trying to present himself as ready and capable and trying to understand what it's going to take to win an NFL playoff game. I have no doubt that Mike Vrabel will get Drake May and some of these other first timers. I have no doubt that Mike Vrabel will get those guys prepared. But a lot of crucial guys on this team, it's going to be their first shot. Not only Drake May, but Will Campbell protecting the blind side. Jared Wilson, rookie left guard, back at practice today, still with the red non-contact jersey. We'll see if he's back on Sunday night. Christian Gonzalez, this will be his first postseason game in the NFL. Shoot, you can even look at the kicker, and you can look at Andy Borregales and say, my goodness, what we just saw from the Baltimore Ravens, their rookie kicker, Tyler Loop, melting down, last Sunday night, costing the Ravens a playoff shot and a playoff home game. So, and really John Harbaugh, his job. So you have a lot of these young guys, a lot of first timers dealing with more media, dealing with more noise. And as you know, David, and I know watching the Patriots in prior years, the margin of error is so much slimmer in the postseason. You just need one rookie, one first timer in the playoffs to mess up, and that could cost you the football game.
100%. I think what we saw last year with the Chargers and the Houston Texans was that the Texans zeroed in on every single little deficiency that the Chargers had and exploited it to the max. So the margin for error is very, very small. You have to play high quality football, mistake free. Of course, we'll get into that later on when we talk about our keys to victory for each side. I'm sure that's going to have something to do with it. But yeah, you got some coaches that have some experience. The Chargers have a couple more players that have some playoff experience, but this is also a big situation for Jim Harbaugh as well. You know, he wants to get his first playoff victory since returning to the NFL, where obviously his previous stint featured 3 NFC Championship game performances, including a Super Bowl appearance against his brother. So he came back with one mission in mind, Nick, and it was to win a Super Bowl championship. It's the last thing that is on, the mantle that's missing. It has that empty spot for him, and if he gets it, that's the last thing he kind of needs to solidify what I already feel like is a Hall of Fame coaching career.
Yeah, I mean, you look at these two coaches, I think a lot of people in the football world would love to have either of these guys coaching their team going into a playoff game. Mike Vrabel took Tennessee to the AFC Championship game going back a few years ago. And we know, Jim Harbaugh almost got the job done against his brother a long time ago. But, you look at these first timers again, you look at these young guys, they've never been there before. Will they wilt? That kind of thing can snowball. Now, the Patriots do have a couple of guys, Milton Williams, Carlton Davis. Milton Williams won a Super Bowl with Philly last year. Yep. Carlton Davis made a deep run with the Detroit Lions. So they do have some guys in the room that have at least made some deep runs and even won a Super Bowl, but you just don't know. And we're talking about a primetime game, Sunday night, NBC TV, Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth on the call, everybody watching you. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this young football team deals with that and how Drake May looks. Obviously, he's the biggest one that you look at. If he goes out there and he looks nervous, and, there have been times every once in a while where he can get a little jittery, he'll calm down, he'll figure it out. But, you do wonder in the back of your mind, is this the kind of first quarter where Drake May is airballing the football into the 5th row and you're going, this might take 2 or 3 series before he figures it out. Justin Herbert, at least, he hasn't been great in the playoffs, but he's been there. So you would think he'd be calm, cool, and collected at least somewhat on Sunday night.
Yeah, for sure. And I just kind of want to dispel some rumors out there about Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert could have played in the last game. It was all about getting him as healthy as possible, along with several other key starters on both sides of the ball. It wasn't just Justin. Khalil Mack didn't play. Derwin James didn't play. Deion Henley, their star linebacker, didn't play. Several of their offensive starters also didn't play. But this was all in an effort to try to get whoever they were playing, not necessarily the Patriots in particular, but whoever it was, they wanted to give him the most amount of rest possible to get that hand as healthy as he possibly could get it. And even with the hand injury, he went 3-1. So it wasn't like it was a huge impediment. It was something that he was able to work around. He even was able to take snaps under center. So I don't feel like the hand injury is going to inhibit the game plan offensively whatsoever.
Yeah, I happen to have Justin Herbert on my fantasy team this year. I know the fantasy football thing, so I did have a keen interest on that injury. I did have a keen interest on the offensive line, and I did watch the Chargers a decent amount this year. But yeah, I mean, I did not look at what they decided to do last weekend as a shot to the Patriots. I don't think they were trying to set up a Patriots matchup. And if you look at other teams, I mean, the Eagles did the same thing. They rested guys.
Yeah.
And that's just really a team philosophy and how you're going to handle the final week of the season when it's not going to significantly impact you. Now, you could talk about the Eagles who had the 2 seed up for grabs. That was a more interesting decision to me. But for the Chargers, they knew, right? They knew that they could only
they were playing on the road no matter
here.
what.
So, do the smart thing. And your quarterback who's dealing with some stuff, your offensive line dealing with a lot of things, even the guys that are available dealing with some things, get healthy, give yourself the best shot when you get to the playoffs. That's how I looked at it. I did not think, I know some people try to carry that narrative, as they say. I wasn't buying it.